Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss The Usual Suspects, starring Stephen Baldwin, Kevin Spacey, Gabriel Byrne, Chaz Palminteri, Kevin Pollak, Pete Postlethwaite, Susie Amos, Giancarlo Esposito, Benicio del Toro, Den Hedaya, and directed by Bryan Singer. Now, I have seen this movie about, I don't know, a few times in my life, plus the couple of times for this review. Let's see how this goes, because I am pretty curious to talk about this movie. Let's talk about it. We open in a terrific score, as it will be throughout the whole movie, and we get to San Pedro, California, the night before, and hardened criminal Dean Keaton, played by Gabriel Byrne, is badly wounded as on the bay and killed, as he's confronted by a mysterious figure he calls Kaiser, who shoots him dead and starts on a fire on the ship. And next day comes when Roger Verbal Kint, played by Kevin Spacey, is getting interrogated by U.S. Customs agent Dave Coogan, played by Chaz Palminteri, whom 6 weeks earlier he arrests some men who are the usual suspects, like Verbal, Michael McManus, played by Stephen Baldwin, Fred Fenster, played by Benicio del Toro, and Todd Hockney, played by Kevin Pollak. And despite their criminals, these are relatable characters, and the acting by every single actor is magnificent. And Kevin Spacey was the best performance this entire movie, as it was worth the Oscar winning, in my opinion. The cops interrogate and beat up on the usual suspects, and they get thrown in jail, and they ask each other questions about what the fuck is happening to them and tell them to be tough, as they were charged criminally in the past. And we get back to San Pedro Bay and see Keaton's burned up body, and Dave gets a warning for the mayor is coming to, and he asks to arrange a meeting with the mayor, and as he doesn't want to see Dave, and the police chief tells him about it. And the writing here by Christopher McQuarrie, who will eventually work with Tom Cruise, deserves the Oscar win for the screenplay written for the screen, as it's very great writing. Excuse me. Jack Bayer, played by Giancarlo Esposito, gets to the hospital room where a man wakes up from death and struggles for his life, while Verbal talks with Dave about what he told the district attorney, and he has a hard time opening a lighter for a cigarette, plus he's thirsty. And Kevin Spacey's performance is brilliant, as we get flashbacks to Keaton and his girlfriend, who's a lawyer named Edie Finneran, played by James Cameron's now wife, Susie Amos, who played the granddaughter in Titanic a few years later. And she wants to sue the NYPD for framing Keaton for no good fucking reason whatsoever without a lawyer, as Verbal watches them walking away. And we move on to Keaton grabbing Verbal and beats him in the stomach, and the dialogue is brilliant from start to finish. Keaton takes Verbal to inside his apartment, and it has art in the background, and the production design was beautifully put together, as the set decoration looks stunning. As we move on to Verbal monologuing about how the NYPD has some corrupt cops, and this monologue is tremendous, as the cops get ambushed by the usual suspects wearing masks, and they light it up with gasoline and fire. And the cinematography was just tremendous, as this movie is well shot throughout, and the usual suspects lay low in Los Angeles, California, and they toast and drink to Verbal as Keaton says his goodbyes to Edie. And we get back to the police interrogation between Dave and Verbal, and says Keaton retired over a woman, while Dave believes it's bullshit and explains how Keaton died the night before, as Jack asks the wounded man questions about what he did as far as buying dope is concerned. And director Bryan Singer does a good job at his second feature-length film as a young director before he ever did movies like X-Men and Bohemian Rhapsody, which is his very best film, as this is his second best in my opinion. They meet with a man named Redfoot Defense, who's played by the bad guy Dorian from the Jim Carrey film The Mask, as this actor's name is Peter Green, and they steal some guy's car and grabs a shitload of cocaine, and as they cuss nonstop at each other, and this works as a thriller. The usual suspects go to a meeting with Kaiser's right-hand man, Kobayashi, played by Pete Postlethwaite, as he explains a job they must pull off and pay their debt for killing Sahlberg and do it for a briefcase, and gives their victims to different people as a gift to them for pulling off the job. And this is a very good film with very good actors playing very good characters, as this movie is so far a pretty solid movie. Vrubel explains a wife and family killed by some Hungarian gangsters, and the husband lets the last Hungarian gangster go. And the shots were great, as I get a close-up on the burned man's face, and I get the impression it's Redfoot talking to Jack, while we get to the beach as they have to bury a dead body with their hands, while at the beach argue about it and decided to do it together as they save the life of Kobayashi as well as hold him hostage for themselves. And this movie is well told and edited, and I never felt the pace in this movie dragging at all, so that's a very good thing that it doesn't drag. Kobayashi takes the usual suspects to his office where Edie is at, and Kobayashi threatens their lives and tells them he's not bullshitting around about how much they know everything, and they figure out a way to kill Kobayashi, and they become snipers as his death, and Keaton tells Vrubel to stay put in his position while Keaton gets to their location and Kaiser's men are blown up, and this sequence is very intense for damn sure. They go through killing the motherfuckers as Hockney sees a bright light while Vrubel froze up as Jack stops recording the interrogation, and Dave comes in and hears Vrubel is innocent. And we go back to the shootout, and a man says the man of Kaiser is here to kill him off. And the usual suspects look around for Kobayashi so they can kill his ass up, while Vrubel runs to the ship, and the Screamer is killed by someone on the ship, and McManus is killed in the back as he dies, and which made me feel bad for him. And Kaiser shot Keaton dead, which made me feel very bad for these people. Vrubel says Kaiser killed Keaton as he dies, which confused me because didn't he get burned up, or was that Redfoot? But we go back to the opening scene, which makes perfect sense because Kaiser burns the ship, and at this point, Dave doesn't believe Vrubel is torments him, believing he killed Keaton, as Vrubel says that's bullshit, and which it is, as he confesses Keaton was behind all of this. And I'm like, there's got to be more to the story than this. As Vrubel is released moments later, Dave realizes Vrubel apparently fabricated the entire story by piecing together the details from random items in Robin's cluttered office. And at the same time, Jack interrogates Kovash in his hospital bed with a police artist who's creating sketch, and while Vrubel is walking outside, gradually losing his limp and flexing his supposedly disabled hand. As Dave pursues Vrubel, a fax arrives at the police station with the artist's facial composite of SZE, and the picture resembles Vrubel, revealing that he was Saws all along. As Vrubel enters the car driven by Kobayashi and leaves moments before Dave arrives on the scene. And the climax was so solid, as the twist was so good, that I would watch this movie again in my future. But how much did I like the movie? Let's talk about it. I'll give this movie a 8.7 out of 10. The score throughout the whole movie was terrific, and despite their criminals, these are relatable characters, and the acting by every actor was magnificent, as Kevin Spacey was the best performance this entire movie because it's brilliant, as it was worth the Oscar, winning for just like the screenplay that Christopher McQuarrie also deserves the Oscar win, and the dialogue was just brilliant. The production design was beautifully put together, as the set decoration looked stunning, and the cinematography is tremendous in this movie, as it's well shot throughout, as director Bryan Singer does a great job at making his second feature-length film successful as a young director before he did movies like X-Men and Bohemian Rhapsody, and this is his second best film in my opinion, as Bohemian Rhapsody is his very best. It works as a thriller, as this is a very good film with very good characters, and this is a solid movie, and a solid recommendation for it, as the shots were great, and the movie was well told and edited, and I never felt the pace in this movie dragging in at all, and it's very well done, well shot, and absolutely well made, and this will be in my library of Blu-rays to keep in the future. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this review, and until whenever, don't get discounted by the usual suspects.